You may believe this or you may not. Some do, some don't. But anyway, bit of a light relief after all Rodney's equations before lunch. Right, how to discover an exoplanet. Telescope and camera not required. Some fame, but not much fortune. I won't attempt to pronounce their names as I usually get it wrong, so I just call them Mr. T and Mr. B. So I'll talk about them, the TB law, as it is applied to the solar system, an alternative version of it, and using it to discover exoplanets, along with resonances. So here are the two gentlemen. They were both German astronomers. One was Professor Wittenberg, I think is the correct way. And the other was, and he had an asteroid and a crater on the moon named after him. That's Mr. T. Mr. B, also German. He determined the orbit of Uranus and suggested the planet's name, but there we go. Right. As you know, planets are formed from the gas and dust circling the host star. And there are gaps in these. And the planets clear the dust and gas away from their orbits. Carefully practicing social distancing. We all remember that. Eventually finish up with a planetary system such as ours. The dwarf planet Ceres and Pluto feature in the TB law on the following slides, but back in the day, Ceres was classified as an asteroid and Pluto a fully fledged planet, not yet discovered in the time of Messrs. T and B. Now, the formula works from Mercury to Uranus, but not, as you can see, by comparing actual and calculated semi-major axes for Neptune and Pluto. So here I have the TB number, starting with 1 Mercury, the planet, the actual semi-major axes, the formula from the TB calculations, and the calculated semi-major axes. So we're okay down here, but not for these two. This is a graphical representation of the TB law applied to the solar system. And you can see that Pluto and Neptune don't actually lie on the curve. So we have the TB number along the bottom and the semi-major axis and astronomical units there. Right. I came across the relationship between TB number and the logs of the semi-major axis in a paper, Exponential Distance Relationship and Near Resonances in the TRAPPIST-1 Planetary System. So again, we have the TB number, the planet, semi-major axis, the log, and the period and the log. And so if you see for the solar system, once you take the log against the TB number, the planets, including the rogue ones, Pluto and Neptune, lie more or less on a straight line. And if we do the same for the period, the log of the period in that column, again, we get a reasonable fit. So I'll talk about this alternative version using logs for the rest of this talk. I think we went to there. Hold on a sec. No, it's okay. It's just because it's an animation. As you can see from this slide, there are quite a few multi-planet exoplanetary systems, but I will be looking at just one, which is 55 Cancri. Makes your eyes go funny, doesn't it? Right. It's down here. Oh, it's up here. Yeah, there it is. There. And it's a 6th magnitude G8 dwarf star, 41 light years away, a little cooler than our sun, and just under a solar mass. It's also a double star. The companion is over 1,000 AU away from the primary and takes 30,000 years to orbit it. So I guess we haven't quite seen one orbit as yet. This is the system as we know it today. The relative planet sizes, masses and distances from the host star are shown. So there's the relative sizes, there's the masses in Jupiter masses, and there's the distance from the sun. Comparing this system to ours, planets E, B, and C are closer to their star than Mercury is to our sun. Venus is 0.72 AU from the sun, so it's fairly close to F, and Jupiter's 5.2 AU from the sun, so it's similar to this planet. So we have some very close in ones and some that are fairly similar to our own system. So if you look at 55 Cancri, TB number, planet ID, as was mentioned earlier, the first one discovered B and C and so on. Semi-major axis, the logs, the period in days, and the log of the period. So if we look at that, you can see that the points don't fall on a straight line. But by adjusting the TB numbers, you can get a reasonable fit. So as you can see, we've moved 2, 3, and 4 out and moved this one out too. So we're more or less on a straight line. And I use the equation on that chart to calculate the new distances. So we've thrown in a few extra planets, a couple of extra planets, as you see here, and you can use the same method for calculating periods. And the log of the semi-major axis plotted against the TB number, and I've shown the additional planets as X and Y, more or less on a straight line. So this is what the new system looks like, new quotes, putting in the 2 extra planets in there. The sizes are not known, obviously. Now, mean motion resonance occurs when 2 planets have periods that are simple integer ratios with each other. In this movie, the inner planet completes 2 orbits for every one of the outer planet. Therefore, they're said to be in a 2-to-1 resonance. If this were to be the view of the system as seen from Earth, we would see the inner planets at transit, but not the outer one, as Rodney mentioned in his talk. Some you see and some you don't. According to the paper which I mentioned on the bottom here, I must admit I haven't fully understood it, so I guess I need Rodney or one of his students to explain it to me. There are 10 to 11 resonance zones which can be occupied by planets in any system. As noted, the resonance values are quite small, 5 to 3, 2 to 1, etc. So that's resonances. According to the previously mentioned paper, the 55 Cancri system may look like this, and the additional planets are numbered H1, H2, etc. This shows the additional planets calculated by the harmonic resonance theory, top. So that's the additional ones poked in there, and by the TB law at the bottom. So there's a lot more planets if you use the harmonic resonance system than the TB law. So it's what it seems to be saying. If you've got gaps between known planets, there may well be other planets in between. So what are the resonances between the existing planets E, B, C, and D and those calculated using the TB law? As you can see in this last column, they're quite large, whereas harmonic resonance papers suggested they're much smaller than that. So adding more planets identified by R1, R2, R3, etc., to keep the period ratios and approximate resonance values low, as you can see in here, does fit with the TB law as shown by the graph here. So everything nicely on a straight line. So what do we get with the TB law and the harmonic resonance system? You remember the harmonic resonance paper, put the additional planets in here. The TB law with the high values of the high values, go back a bit. The high values of resonance sit in there, just the 2. But if I use the more acceptable values of resonance, we get this. So both the TB law and the harmonic resonance system come out with very similar answers. So some astronomers support the idea the harmonic resonance model, and or the TB law can indicate where new planets might be, and some are skeptical. So is there some truth in this? Could it help us to find additional planets? Or is it just all make-believe? I think it gives you a good idea of where to look possibly, although the orbital periods and the semi-major axis may not be quite correct using the TB law harmonic resonance system. But if you've got big gaps, there's more than an even chance there might be other planets in there. Right, thanks guys. Quick scan through that.
Thank you, Roger.
Right.
I see there's been a few little bits of discussion going on. I'm not sure if anyone's got any questions which they'd like to ask.
Feel free. Screen sharing stopped. I'll just close that off so I get rid of that window. Right, fire away, guys.
Now, I'd just like to say, I mean, it's possible that some of those gaps, because like with Titus Bode law, one of the gaps is the asteroid field, isn't it?
Well be, yeah.
And so quite likely you might not find anything in those areas because they could indeed be sort of asteroid fields, possibly. Yeah.
Something else for us to look for. Can we detect asteroid fields?
Probably not, I would have thought, but
No, probably not. I think the larger telescopes have actually detected some comets, so you never know. Deathly hush.
Deathly hush. No hands up.
No hands up.
Yeah,
They've probably all gone to lunch.
Yes, I mean, I can add a little bit if you want. I mean, from stuff which I've also heard is there's kind of debates going on as to the gaps in protoplanetary disks, as to how much of them are due to an actual planet in the gap versus kind of when you start to form planets, you can get that can kind of create sort of, you can get material piling up at different locations. And that's not to say that planets don't form gaps, but whether there's a mix of planets forming them and other kind of mechanisms which go on in star formation and then planetary formation, which may be creating some of the gaps as well. But I think the jury's still out as to the exact causes.
Yeah, I understood that the gaps are caused by planets accreting, etc. Isn't that a definition of a planet that's actually cleared the dust and the rubble out of its orbit?
It's a definition of a planet, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the only mechanism which can cause the gap. And it depends whether you see the same gap at all different wavelengths. Because what you're doing is you're seeing the dust at a particular sort of wavelength, which applies to a certain size of dust particle.
So I guess until we can get an image from Alma or someone else that there's actually an object in that gap, we won't know.
Yeah, and I think that has been done for at least one.
Okay. There was a note came up there and it went away quickly. Let me look on the, where's it gone?
One from Keith. So unless Keith wants to speak, feel free to unmute.
Yeah, my chat has suddenly disappeared. I'm not sure where it's gone, but
no, I was just saying that perhaps these missing planets might just not be quite on the same orbital plane as the other ones that we're seeing. So we'll just never perhaps get to see them pass in front of their host star.
Yeah, that was mentioned in one paper I read, that they may be on inclined orbits, as are some of the planets in the solar system, but not by very much, are they?
Yeah.
One of my chat has disappeared, Andy.
If you go back to your Zoom screen and you'll have chat at the bottom.
Well, I've got everything else: participants, share, reactions, apps, whatever.
What you might have done is accidentally close it. So if you click on chat at the bottom.
Yeah, it's under more. It's under more. It's okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay, three things there. The missing planets might not be quite on the same orbital plane. Yes, we've done that. Another one: has the application of the TB law led to a targeted search that's actually detected an exoplanet? Not to my knowledge. It seems that I've tried this on quite a few planetary systems, but it seems that once a particular planetary system has been observed, the professional telescopes don't tend to go back there again. So you'll never know. But there you go. We've got a project. We can work something out from the TB law or from the resonances and see what might be there, and then go for it. But the answer, I think, is I don't know, and I don't think so. We just have to go back to some of those systems at like 55 Cancri and relook at it again. No, that doesn't. Okay, that's the ones that are on there. Okay, right. A good project. Right, have we got any more before we break for lunch? A little early, but not to worry.
Yeah, I guess that'll give people a bit more time to get their lunch and be ready for this afternoon.
And we'll start again at what did we say? We'll start again at 1:30.
1:30.
And tired of hearing my voice, Rodney will be conducting matters this afternoon. Got a strange picture of a Rodney up there now. Must be a much younger Rodney.
Is he?
Right.
He's starting his lunch.
He's gone to have his lunch, or his brand new shed has fallen down. No, it's not. No, it's not. Right. If nobody has got anything else they want to say or chat, or say, if you put it on the chat, we'll download the chat and answer any questions that haven't been answered, or etc. Siegfried said he didn't think there's an exoplanet found in this way, and I think he's right, because as I said, I don't think the professional telescopes tend to go back to the same systems. I might be wrong, but I think that's the way. Right, so we get back together then at 1:30, folks.